The introduction of enhanced mobility in 2015's Halo 5 will probably go down as one of the most controversial decisions in the Halo franchise's nearly 20-year history. And you didn't have to travel far or wide to find a Halo fan who disliked enhanced mobility in Halo. But despite the mass critique this system got, Halo Infinite has opted to retain some of the enhanced mobility features from Halo 5. And this time around, fans seem pretty pleased. So today we ponder the question, what changed? Thanks to Mech Arena for sponsoring this video. If the downtime between Slayer matches is leaving you unfulfilled, you need to download Mech Arena. The action in this game will keep you rearing for more, as you'll take on real players in 2v2 up to 5v5 matches across various maps and combat game modes. And one of the best parts is that you'll do it with your own handcrafted mech. Now, I'm a little boring and I actually got attached to the Paragon mech armed with dual auto cannons, but that's because when I play control points on this map, having the constant firepower lets me lay into anyone trying to capture mid, all while still letting me keep my distance. And as a Halo fan, you know I feel right at home in a simple geometric arena, like this map. There are a load of events happening in-game right now with amazing daily welcome rewards all the way to the end of the month, where you can get a bunch of awesome weapons, including Mech Arena's hottest new weapon, the disc launcher. On top of that, there's a ton of special Halloween events to take part in and some extra special Halloween skins to win. Mech Arena is completely free to play on Android and iOS, so you need to use my download link in the description below or just scan the QR code that's been on your screen this whole time. I'm telling you guys, use these methods because if you do, you'll get the Desert Digital skin, 200 A coins, and 10,000 credits. So don't wait any longer. Join me in Mech Arena Robot Showdown. Let's start today's video by sorting out the phrase enhanced mobility. For the sake of today's video, enhanced mobility is going to reference any trait that enhances the movement options of the players outside of just regular linear motion. This is anything that isn't just full stick running, jumping, or crouching. Many games would consider features like sprint or clamber to be base motion, but Halo is a little different, so we'll consider that as enhanced motion. Now, we're going to dial the clock back to 2015 and unpack everything that came with Halo 5's version of enhanced mobility. There was unlimited sprinting, clambering, sliding, thruster packing, stabilization, ground pound, and Spartan charge. But in 2021, the only surviving members of that giant array are just sprint, clamber, and slide. And despite the truth that this still represents a major gutting of the system, the reality is that none of these features really had to return in Halo Infinite. So to even have these three retained is still a pretty big deal. So what gives? What happened after Halo 5 that made 343 take this system to the cutting room floor? Even if people disliked this system, it wasn't like it was poorly made. In fact, Halo 5's take on enhanced motion in an FPS game is, in my humble opinion I suppose, one of the best iterations and products of that era of gaming. So, in a way, if 343 really wanted to, they could have straight ported Halo 5's enhanced mobility into Halo Infinite. So, I'm going to assert that the chopping block for enhanced mobility in Halo Infinite was not defined by the quality of the feature. It was defined by the intentions of 343 in Halo Infinite. To understand that, listen to this bit here. In Halo 5, enhanced mobility was in many ways about turning the player's body into a weapon. It was about creating an additional skill gap centered around the pure and unfiltered control of the player body. And that skill gap is defined by the tandem between combat and movement. Abilities like Spartan Charge and Ground Pound are obvious extensions of the melee system, which truthfully had gone uniterated since 2007's Halo 3, which had opted to do away with the variability in melee that we had seen in Halo 2, since since that game based melee damage off of weapon being wielded at the time. Yeah, Halo 2 was all over the place. When I made the video about the evolution of grenade launchers in Halo, a lot of you didn't know that the brute shot in Halo 2 had a one-shot aerial melee. Because that makes sense, I guess. The other abilities, like thrust, stabilization, clamber, and sliding, were about extending raw mobility, making fights more dynamic than they ever were before. The subtle reality is that motion in Halo has traditionally been fairly restricted, and Halo 5 represented not only adding a valve to that measure, but then opening that valve all the way open. And as it turns out, I think Halo 5's enhanced mobility achieved all the goals it set out to hit. But just because you achieve your goal doesn't mean you achieved the right goal. The extensions to the melee system just eventually developed into cheap, yet effective, ways to deal insane amounts of damage to unsuspecting players without sometimes actually entering a true combat loop. And our movement quirks kind of ended up as sudden and unexpected disruptions to combat, whether it be thrusting outside of a strafe fight or stabilizing, blocking you from entering in air fights. But most critically, as the skill gap developed, players who couldn't use these abilities well, let alone greatly, were punished highly by players who could in fact manipulate the skill gap as intended. And I have remarked several times that Halo 5 is the first Halo game since Halo 2 that does a great job of rewarding skilled players and then absolutely decimating people who are just average. But somewhere inside this system that's designed to groom out skilled players rests a quirk, one that is one of the most natural elements of Halo's gameplay. And it's the design item that would go on to be what 343 targeted in their reinvention of enhanced mobility for Halo Infinite. Any guess what it is? Momentum. Player momentum is one of the oldest and surprisingly under-discussed facets of Halo's combat and movement. Well, I guess I shouldn't call it surprising. You don't really think about the fundamentals too much. Do you think about walking? Do you think about breathing? Are you breathing manually right now? I bet you are.
I'm in control of your body. Don't forget that.
Anyway, since Halo lacked true mobility enhancers for nearly half its current lifespan, players use momentum as a natural way to gain speed and advantage in fights or travel. This is a byproduct of Halo's physics system, which for the longest time made it unique amongst its peers by allowing players to ricochet off surfaces, bounce off of each other, or otherwise just not slap into things flat and die. Except for Halo CE, which would punish you for falling down 5 feet, it felt like. And that's not even including some of the crazier stuff like rocket jumping or grenade jumps. Momentum manipulation is hardwired into Halo, and if you've ever watched a Shyway video, you're pretty thoroughly aware that in Halo 5 the floodgates were opened for manipulation of momentum. So for Halo Infinite, 343 sought to make enhanced mobility about momentum manipulation, not combat manipulation. And to do this, they carried over sprint, clamber, and slide. But why? Sprint in Halo Infinite is not really about raw travel speed. In fact, a full stick run in Halo Infinite is about the same as a sprint. What it is about gaining a little extra value in momentum, and it's an activation gate for slide, which is what I would call a cash-in on your momentum, a use of momentum as a type of currency, if you will. Sliding allows for some dynamics in fights, whether it's getting into smaller spaces, becoming more evasive, or just resetting your momentum to something you desire more. Sprint and slide are interactive and reactive. Clamber is what you'd probably consider the ultimate momentum cash-in, as it allows you to give up all your current momentum in exchange for verticality, which is often a combat advantage. And it's an alternative to crouch jumping, but it's not a replacement for it, which is important because crouch jumping retains its spot as a way to gain verticality while maintaining momentum. But instead of giving players unlimited access to the more dynamic momentum items like thrusters, 343 has opted to lock this stuff away behind consumables like grapple shot or the repulsor. And if you recall my critique of armor abilities in Halo Reach and Halo 4, one of the things I called out as a negative impact is that armor abilities granted players permanent and unfettered access to these changes to the base movement or abilities of the player. But by limiting the use to the crazier things like Halo Infinite has done, you still confine players to having the same base abilities, all while still allowing that variability that these items create. It ensures you can have modification to the experience, but not permanent change to it. That is extremely important. The big takeaway I want you all to really get is that enhanced mobility was something that was under a lot of fire going into Halo Infinite and could have very easily just been swept off the side of the table and forgotten. But by changing the end goal away from skill gapping to simple enhancement of momentum, 343 was able to retain even a portion of the original system. And it acts as an improvement to the experience in Halo Infinite. 343 saved what is in reality a very young facet of the Halo gameplay experience, and it acts as a bridge from an experience standpoint between Halo 5 and its sister title, Halo Infinite. In this way, we kept our ingredients, but we baked a different cake, and that is impressive game design. So for today's viewer question, I want you to ponder this. Is there a different element of Halo Infinite that has ingredients from a previous game that were baked into a different cake in this game? I'm thinking a lot about cake now, so that's probably going to be it for today's video. Like it if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, like I said, please follow me on Twitter, and join my Discord linked below. Until next time, I'll catch y'all later.